Here's Sheikh Yasser Qadhi telling a popular audience that since the time of Caliph Uthman, no two copies of the Quran have ever differed in even a single word or letter.
I want everyone to pay careful attention here because Yasser Qadhi is explaining the work that Uthman did to standardize the Quran. And then he claims that since the time of Uthman, you can't find two copies that differ in even one word or one letter.
From his time up until our time, there has never been two copies of the Quran that are different even in one letter or one word.
From the time of Uthman down to the present, there has never been two copies of the Quran that differ even in one word or one letter.
Welcome to Fantasyland. Population 1.8 billion. You just heard Sheikh Yasser Qadhi in a video made for people like Sneeko, people who don't know anything about the history of the Quran, say that every copy of the Quran in the world today is completely identical to every other copy. You heard him say that, right? But now I'm confused because Sheikh Yasser Qadhi definitely does not believe what he just said. How do I know that he doesn't believe what he just said? Because when he's speaking to people he calls students of knowledge, these are Muslims who are on the path to becoming scholars, he admits that there are different Qurans.
In other words, if you were to compare two printed Qurans, you're going to see differences between them.
But world-renowned Quran scholar Sneeko says you're wrong, Sheikh.
And this is something that many people are unaware of and many people have heard but are not fully familiar with, especially those who have been exposed to some of our brothers who live in Algeria or Morocco or other North African countries. They recite the Quran in a slightly different way.
They recite the Quran differently? Are you simply referring to a different voice or speaking style?
Not just a voice or not just a speaking style, but also changes in letters and words and harakat.
Different letters and words? Here I thought that no two copies of the Quran differed in even a single letter or word. Where did I get that idea?
From his time up until our time, there has never been two copies of the Quran that are different even in one letter or one word.
Oh, that's just what Sheikh Yasser Qadhi says to people like Sneeko. What does he say to students of knowledge again?
In other words, if you were to compare two printed Qurans, you're going to see differences between them. Changes in letters and words and harakat.
If you'd like to perform a fun experiment, line up 1,000 fans of Sheikh Yasser Qadhi. Show them clips of him saying that the Quran has been perfectly preserved right down to the letter. Then show them clips of him admitting that there are different Qurans in different parts of the world. Then ask if they have any problem whatsoever with Sheikh Yasser Qadhi saying completely different things to different audiences.
Am I crazy here, or is that like as clear as anything can possibly be that he's contradicting himself? I say you can perform an experiment. You can line up. I was talking about Yasser Qadhi's followers. Why this is so interesting is Fareed does it with his followers who can't stand Yasser Qadhi, and they still don't see any problem with what he just said.
Is Yasser Qadhi contradicting himself in both clips?
Uh-huh. So he just asked his audience. He just asked his audience, and they're responding.
We got nope.
No, he's not contradicting himself.
Nope.
No, he's not contradicting himself.
Nope.
Nope, not contradicting himself.
We got yes.
Oh, someone said yes. Brave man.
We got nope.
No.
These people are probably proud. Proud of saying no.
We got no.
No.
Oh, I know the right answer. It's no.
Watch it there because it's like no, yes, no, yes, no. In other words, it's he's showing that for the vast majority of his viewers, again, these are not Yasser Qadhi fans. These are Fareed's fans. Fareed can't stand Yasser Qadhi. They still don't see any problem with Yasser Qadhi walking up to one group and saying, perfect preservation right down to the letter, no variants ever in the entire, since the time of Uthman. And oh, yes, of course, in copies today, which are definitely since the time of Uthman, you have all these differences. They don't see any problem with it. Why? Because exactly as I said, they've been conditioned not to see this and not to be able to recognize it.
SubhanAllah, this is interesting.
He's saying it's interesting. What? That I'm right?
We got an I don't know.
That I'm right?
Yeah, Yasser Qadhi just can't explain it without messing up. No.
I'm lying. They said, David Wood is lying.
I don't know. We got, I guess, yes. We got nah. We got Dr. Yasser Qadhi can't be trusted.
No.
He looks so disappointed.
Did you hear him? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You guys actually just said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. David Wood said Yasser Qadhi fans wouldn't have any problem with him saying completely contradictory things to different audiences in order to deceive them. And then he asks them to refute me. And they all say, nope, David's completely right.
First video is about different qira'at. Second video is about Harf of Quraysh.
No, it's not. It doesn't matter what in the world you're talking about. If you say no two copies of the Quran since the time of Uthman differ in even one letter, that's false. You can't say, oh, he's referring to. He's referring to copies of the Quran.
It seems like Yasser Qadhi's lying.
What?
That's just the reality. From my perspective, Yasser Qadhi seems to be lying.
Really?
He could have used any other word to his point across.
You know what really sucks, though? It's like something that should take 20 seconds ends up taking years. Because AP, how many years have I been sharing those clips? I've been sharing those clips for at least a few years. It's always, nope, you're taking them out of context. You're taking them out of context. There's some way of reconciling this. And me saying, no, there's not. No, there's not. No, there's not. He was obviously just lying. It takes years before, okay, yeah, he was lying.
In the second video, he's clear about the reality and he affirms the reality.
So now we have Yasser Qadhi admitting that there are different Qurans. We have Shabir Ali admitting that there are different Qurans. And Fareed admitting that there are different Qurans. And yet the vast majority of Muslims that we will run into will still say no differences between any two Qurans.
But Sheikh Yasser Qadhi isn't the only Muslim scholar who admits that there are different Qurans in different parts of the world. Here's Dr. Shabir Ali.
Today, most Muslims read the Quran in a text that is referred to as the Egyptian edition of 1924.
Most Muslims.
يعني شوف Shabir Ali is a punk. Okay? Shabir Ali is a punk.
That's not a refutation, Fareed. Guys, what Shabir said is absolutely correct. saying he's a punk is not a refutation.
When you say something dumb like that, we read the Cairo edition of the Quran. Shal kalam. Who says this? Who says we read the 1924 Cairo edition? Well, you're making it sound like the Quran was written 100 years ago. Now we're reading Qiraat Hafs and Asim. Most people are reading Qiraat Hafs and Asim, who passed away 1,300 years ago. But go to Cairo edition, 1924. Who are you speaking to, man?
So he doesn't want him to use those words because they could be confusing to public audiences. But
they have a problem with words.
The words that Shabir Ali uses are entirely acceptable, right?
For years, non-Muslims have been responding to this claim of one Quran, saying, "Hey, the version you're using was actually one that was popularized and foisted upon people. It's the 1924 Cairo edition." And then Shabir Ali just acknowledges it, and then shame on you. People are going to get the wrong idea.
Muslims read a particular Egyptian version from 1924?
You go like Egyptian version. That's what happens. He's making it seem like the Quran was written 100 years ago. And by the way, Shabir Ali is not doing this on purpose. It's just Shabir Ali is a punk. That's what it is. He's not lying. You're trying to do that thing. You're trying to do that. Hey, 1924 Cairo edition. Yes, salam alaik.
This is awesome. Don't miss the big picture of what's going on here. For years, they make one claim. It takes us forever to expose the lie. And then they get to the point where they're acknowledging that it's been a lie.
I thought all Muslims of all times read exactly the same Quran.
That's always what I've heard.
But this is not the only text of the Quran that is read throughout the world.
Wait, there are different versions of the Quran even today? That's not what Sneeko says.
In North Africa, there is a slightly different text that is based on a slightly different reading, mostly corresponding to what we read in the rest of the world.
Mostly.
A different text?
There is a slightly different text.
That mostly corresponds to what other Muslims read?
Mostly corresponding to what we read in the rest of the world.
This isn't what Sneeko's been saying at all.
And then, too, in some parts of Africa, there is another reading of the Quran and a matching manuscript that is prevalent. And here, too, we find some slight variations.
Still another version in other parts of Africa? With more variations?
And here, too, we find some slight variations.
Shabir isn't saying anything controversial.
I agree. This is only controversial if you've been fed a lie. This wouldn't be an issue if they hadn't spent years lying.
Keep in mind, these are different Qurans that are still used in different parts of the world today. When we go to early manuscripts of the Quran, the problem becomes even more glaring. For instance, after describing the Sana'a manuscript, which contains tons of variants, Shabir says this.
This cuts away at the sense of complacency that many Muslims have gone around with, thinking that, okay, everything has been preserved dot for dot, letter for letter, the way it was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with no variation or change whatsoever.
So the Sana'a manuscript refutes the absurd claim that the Quran has been perfectly preserved.
How does that work?
How does it work? If you say perfectly preserved letter for letter, and we find no two Qurans have ever differed even in a single letter, then notice Yasir Qadhi only said from the time of Uthman. So if the Sana'a manuscript is pre-Uthmanic, that wouldn't present a problem for what Yasir Qadhi said. But your average Muslim has believed perfect preservation right down to the letter from the time of Muhammad. So a single manuscript saying with a bunch of textual variants presents a problem for that. That's all Shabir said. He's just saying this sense of complacency that Muslims have, that there's no sort of textual history to our book, and that there are actual variants and so on. We need to stop spouting that nonsense.
I haven't seen the context of this. If he's actually saying that the Quran is not preserved, then Shabir's a kafir. Simple as that. Yeah.
Whoa.
This is a very, very serious thing. He just did what is commonly and notoriously known as takfir, which means declaring that a fellow Muslim is a kafir, a disbeliever.
Fareed is saying, if you say the Quran has not been preserved, you're a kafir. Dude, if you go through the Muslim sources, you've got Aisha talking about, verses being eaten by a sheep. You've got Ubay ibn Ka'b talking about hundreds of verses coming up missing from Surah 33 alone, because the people who had them memorized died in battle and so on. You've got the Muslim community takes it for granted that there were all these changes to the Quran, that passages were forgotten and so on. And Fareed's saying, hey, if you don't think it's been preserved, then you're a kafir. Wow, there went the entire community of Muhammad's companions. They're all in hell, according to Fareed. Thanks, Fareed.